Copyright the University of Auckland. All rights reserved. The content and delivery of lectures in this course are protected by copyright. Material belonging to others may have been used in these lectures and copied by and solely for the educational purposes of the university under license. You may record the lectures for the purposes of private study or research, but you may not upload onto any third-party site, make a further copy, or sell, alter, or further reproduce or distribute any part of these lectures to any other person. Failure to comply with the terms of this warning may expose you to legal action for copyright infringement by the copyright owner and/or disciplinary action by the university.
That's sort of the kingly looking chair there.
Well, it's from the actual time of kings, it's just 500 years old.
Yeah, that's the luxury chair.
Are we just sitting here?
Okay. Oh yeah, we just. I never didn't think that through. I think we should stand.
Yeah.
Because then they can see us. And what I'll do here is if you use one mic, then I can use the other mic.
What do you want to be
I'll,
there and I can walk around? Or you want
yeah,
to walk
well,
around?
if you do it, you be here.
Yeah.
I'll use this thing. You use this one.
Okay, but then I need to be here all the time.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah. Do you want to do that?
I'm happy to walk around.
Okay. You'd be.
Do you mind if I walk around? Or
Not
you
at
want
all.
to
No, not at all. We'll do.
It allows for me like free flowing.
Yeah. I like to paste too. So that's good. Just turn it off. What goes on there? Oh, it goes there. Just turn it on and off there. Here. Yeah. That's good. Ooh.
Can we just sit down and have like sort of
Well, if we sit down, yeah,
and there's this.
I think not there. you can just go back and forth here. Like that.
Cool.
Get started. Right. Hello and welcome to International Business 202, Foundations of Strategy, Week 11. We have a guest today. It's Sebastian Walter.
Hey guys.
From Raglan Coconut Yogurt. And the first thing I'd like to invite you to do is to pick your stuff up, especially if you're in the back half of the room. Pick your stuff up, please, and just find your way towards the front somewhere. Don't worry about groups today. It's just that we'd like to have a bit of a conversation. So we don't want to have to sort of raise our voices and repeat questions if we can avoid that. Yes, come on down, please. All right, we're just inside the halfway mark. That's good. Now, there are 109 students usually present. And I'm thinking because this lecture is recorded, there's not as many here. I did promise there would be an exam question on this. So, no, that's a bit me holding a stick like this. So what I'm also saying is that if you're sitting here right now, that's congratulations. I think you're going to do better than if you're not. But, really aside from studies and grades and assessment, the reason why I have a guest like Sebastian here is because it's just good for you. At a point when you're studying and you're halfway through university and you're looking at options, and he's come out of university just a few years ago, and he's at someplace amazing now that he's going to talk about. I think it's great for students to be able to relate to some of the possibilities that are out there. And I've said it before, one of the privileges of this job to share some of the experiences of students that have been in this class before. This is one of these guys who I announced at the very beginning of the semester. There's a lot of guys who are a lot smarter and are going a lot further and make more important decisions than I ever will. And Sebastian's one of them, so sorry,
you're excited, right?
Yeah. But he's here today, and so we've got these questions that we have formulated, and he's looked at some answers or formulated some answers, and he's got a few slides to introduce Raglan Coconut Yogurt, and then we're going to have a bit of a conversation. At any point, if something pops into your mind, just raise your hand, because that makes it more interesting for everybody, right? Instead of just us having a conversation and you listening. And we'll, try and make this interesting and a participative thing, right?
Cool. Thank you, Dan. Pleasure to meet you all. As Dan has mentioned, I've come from a master's program in this university here. I studied to the Masters of International Business, I think 2009. And then further down the track, took a job, was never really happy in a job, and just wasn't a good employee or being told what to do, never was really my natural forte. On that note, anyone here has ambitions to start their own business one day? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oh, that's a good quota. Yeah, we need entrepreneurs. So Raglan Coconut Yogurt, fast forward, it really all started with a food allergy. I always, as long as I can remember, had a clogged up nose. I would wake up every morning and my nose would be runny and snotty, and the first act in the morning, get to the tissue box and sneeze a little bit. I never could pinpoint what it was. By the time I was sort of my mid-20s, I just accepted this is just life. The nose is dysfunctional, that's what you do. Until we realized, me and my wife, that we maybe should cut out dairy. So 5 years ago, a bit over 5 years ago, we started cutting out dairy, but we struggled getting rid of yogurt because at the time there was no alternative to dairy yogurt. So every morning we had our granola with fruit and dairy yogurt. And my wife Letitia started making a home recipe of coconut yogurt just for us at home to eat. One day she made a bit more than we could eat. She made about 5 jars, and she put it on the local Facebook page, the Raglan notice board. It has basically the whole village is on it, and she offered $10 a jar for those remaining 4 jars we had. We had 60 people who wanted that stuff, and at that point we realized, hey, maybe it's not just me with that dairy intolerant problem, maybe there's other people. So we shrugged our shoulders and got our cooking gear on and basically made those 60 jars. I PowerPoint designed our first label, which was taped on with double-sided tape on the top of the jar, printed out at our home printer, and that was our first product. I think we called it MVP in business speak, minimum viable product. Yeah, so there was no development cost or nothing. It was just our home recipe, and we kept on going like that for a while. And we hired the local commercial kitchen, which was really just a community kitchen, and we hand stuck the labels on. That's me hand sticking hundreds of labels there on. I picked up all the jars and the coconut cream in our surf van from Auckland once a week, and so we grew. So in that little setup, half a year after we started from home, we won the New Zealand Food Award. And that's when I knew we are up for some serious growth, and we have to make something happen here. We won't be able to produce from that rented kitchen for much longer. And that's when we started building our first factory. Next slide. So that's our first factory. That's us on the filling line. It's a fully automatic filling line. And on the next slide, you'll see that's our team now. We can make up to 4,000 liters a day. And soon, in hopefully 6 to 9 months, we're going to move in our new factory, which can do about 12 tons a day. Yeah. So that's been our journey so far. We have 8 different flavors in 2 sizes. It's available in all the supermarkets in New Zealand, or over 80% of supermarkets in New Zealand. It's the market-leading plant-based yogurt, and still growing, still healthy, and yeah. Any questions? No?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, just on when you introduced yourself, you said something about a job that you had. So he worked for Spark, right?
Yeah.
But it's now Spark. And before then, it was Adidas.
Yeah, Adidas and Deutsche Bank. Yeah.
And Deutsche Bank. So you have some experience in these massive corporations, right?
Yeah.
And would you just speak a little bit about the difference in the culture and the types of decisions and the sort of observations that you've seen as sort of a cog on a wheel in these massive corporations, and as a founder of a company like that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Yeah, big companies are exactly that. They're big. And the bigger a machine gets, the smaller is your function as an individual in that machine. You know, at Telecom, we had 12 people just looking after pricing, meaning they did nothing else day in, day out than pricing different services. And they never had any view on product development, on what's further down the track, on what the strategy for mobile is going to be in response to 2 degrees entering the market, and all that sort of stuff. So for me, the big picture was always a lot more appealing and interesting than being compartmentalized into a very specific area. And really, I think comes down to what your personality speaks to. There's people that excel at like very specific tasks, and they really enjoy the depth and the specificness of it. But I like to understand the whole machine, and I like to dream about what the future could hold. And that, unless you're really at the top of an organization, especially launching new products can take years and years, involves teams of hundreds of people, of which individuals only ever play very small roles. Yeah, okay. I think that's the main difference. Yeah. And
at the beginning of this course, I also asked how many people wanted to start their own business, and I also asked how many people would like to work for a large corporation, and a number of hands went up. So could you raise your hands again if you'd like to work for a large corporation? Yeah, and put another hand up now, please, if you'd like to also start your own business, because, you know, there's some ambitious people out there, right? Okay, so can you, this is not on the script, I'm going off, but what are some of the, are there any transferable sort of skills or anything that you could learn from those corporate positions that you now are operationalizing in your business, or not?
I mean, one thing I learned in the corporate world, and I must say, take my comments with a grain of salt, because I've only spent about 1.5 years in the corporate world, but I had a fairly sort of deep look, like almost one level under executive in telecom, is structure. Yeah, they operate very structured. You hone your PowerPoint skills, you learn how to frame data to make your point, because it's all about convincing. Yeah, you present to a board, they sit there, 6 people, your executive that you work for wants to make a certain point, and it's your job to justify that point he wants to make. So you learn to mine the data and frame the data in a way that justifies your argument, which is a good skill to have. You know, everyone, even in a small business, you need to pitch to people, you need to convince people, so you need to be able to tell your story with substance. That's something I personally learned. If you're interested in politics or in the people aspect, that's one part that annoyed me the most in the corporate world, that it's not really a meritocracy. Not the smartest person wins. It's the person seems to get to the top who is good enough at the hard skills and excels at the social skills. Yeah, so I think social skills in a corporation is potentially a lot more important than in a small company, where it's really visible what you do and what your contribution is, because your hard contribution in a bigger company is not necessarily visible.
Social skills. So that's why at university we individualize you into little seats in massive lecture theaters.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Do you plan on making the company into more of like a anchor type, so the corporate level that you were talking about, do you plan on making it, or keeping it like a family style type of business like it is now?
Yeah, I mean, Anchor is owned by Fonterra, they're cooperative, so the decision making is different. I don't plan to take the company public or grow it beyond a very small, intimate group of shareholders, simply because I value fast and sometimes quite bold decision making. Yeah, the broader your shareholder base, or even publicly listed, you need to justify every decision, which waters down the boldness of a decision making. You tend to make more safe, more in the middle type of decisions. Yeah, but that doesn't prevent the company from growing very big. There's some very big privately held companies. Yeah.
Good question. Yep.
When you began this business, was there a lot of sort of environmental consciousness as well? Is that what, because when I look at your mission statement, to me it just seems very, what do you call it, earth, clean energy, sort of aura.
Yeah. Well, to us, the company is really just an extension of ourselves. We live in Raglan I'm a surfer. I came to New Zealand, moved to Raglan because I wanted to surf more, spend more time in nature. We have a 1 acre block with bees and fruit trees. So really, to us, that sort of stuff is sort of natural. It's not really a strategy. It's more like, it happens to be a strategy now that's popular to be sustainable. It was when we started, it was, what do we package the stuff in? Well, not plastic. Plastic doesn't feel right. Let's do glass. All that sort of stuff. What sort of coconut cream should we get? Well, we buy organic ourselves. Let's get organic coconut cream. So it was, and these sort of type of decisions, when you do your own thing, are quite natural, because you don't need to consult with anyone. You just do what feels right to you. And then by implication, it becomes an authentic brand and an authentic story to tell, because you're not making it up to appeal to someone. You just try to feel right about what you're doing. Yeah.
Good. Go ahead.
When you talk about growing, are you talking about expanding your product range as well? Because you showed us all the yogurts that you sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. Well, To us, the wider vision is to accelerate the adoption of a plant-based diet by humankind. So there's a lot of product categories currently in the dairy and animal-based space, and a lot of them don't have a good enough plant-based option yet. So there's a lot of space for disruption. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of room for bringing good, viable plant-based option to market that no one has cracked yet. There is options in most spaces. Lots of them are still sort of early stage and haven't quite matured to that high enough quality yet to convince customers that it's worth switching over. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah.
think about the fact that from my customers' opinion, it seems like it's getting more and more competitive in the competitive area, since people like myself are discovering that maybe they're more lactose intolerant than when I was young.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So where would you position yourself in the competitive market? Since knowing that you are at the top right now, but there may be low cost businesses coming in, and how would you react to that?
No, very good question. And your observation is absolutely right. When we started out 5 years ago, the dairy-free yogurt segment made about 2.5% of total yogurt sales. The total yogurt sale in New Zealand is about 250 million a year. Today, it's nearly 8%. So the segment has grown more than threefold. So there's a lot more interest in plant-based alternative, and we see that continue to grow. It still grows well in the double digits. Not as rapid as it used to in the early years, but still very healthy growth. So with that, naturally, a lot more competitors come along. Everyone wants to have a pie of a share of the pie, and then positioning and price and all these things become relevant. But the way I look at it is a rising tide lifts all boats. If the pie grows and the market grows, all you have to do is hold your share. You just have to be there and have to be good enough. You don't even have to be much better than your competitors, even though we certainly are, and we try to be. But we see even fairly poor plant-based yogurts performing well. That's not an incentive to launch a poor plant-based yogurt, but really, I think what I'm trying to say is, and I'm sure you've learned it in classes, the macro environment, the macro trend, the rising tide is a lot more important than individual company performance. There will be individual companies that outperform the market, but even if you're an average or slightly below average company in the right tide, you still grow. And in terms of positioning, for us it's no question. Being the low-cost player means you have to use a lot of water, a lot of starch, package in plastic, and make a subpar, typical food industry type of product. Yeah, that's how you pop out a $4, $5 tub of yogurt, especially with coconut yogurt. Coconut cream is 6 times the cost of dairy milk. So you have no choices. Yeah, you have no budget left to make high premium. So for us, the positioning will always be at the top of the market. And it's very much, our mission is not to infinitely grow, but I wouldn't feel comfortable making a crap product that I don't want to have in my fridge anymore. Yeah. Yeah.
So is your company more of a differentiated product with high quality and slightly below? How would you define your company? Because you talked about low cost, very unhealthy, unorganic forms of products that are on the market.
Yeah.
So what would you classify it as?
Yeah, I think in terms of the literature, you could definitely say it's a differentiator. I mean, first, the whole plant-based category is sort of a differentiative, disruptive to the dairy, because the big competition is still dairy. Remember, we have over 90% of yogurt sales are still dairy. So ultimately, that's the price. Yeah, the better our product, or as a whole, the plant-based industry can become, the more affordable without losing quality, the more share we're going to take of dairy. And that's why the competition within the plant-based space is not so important. It's the competition against other alternatives to get more of that bigger pie. Yeah.
But so your product would be for the people who can't eat lactose, right?
Yes.
So how would you extend that range to people who are tolerant to lactose?
Yeah, no, great question. We purchase market data and consumer behavior data once every 6 months. And the last data has shown that now over 60% of people that choose dairy-free products are actually choose so out of personal preference, not because of an allergy. So that tells you something. That tells you we're now moving slowly but surely into mass market. We're now reaching a state of awareness where people say, I choose that because I want to, because for some reason, may it be environmental concerns, may it be that there's a belief that dairy is not the best for them anymore. For some reason, they freely choose so, even though they don't feel negative impact on their body from it. So yeah, there's an awareness shift towards plant-based for a whole range of reasons. Yeah.
Do you think the rise of veganism is having a big impact on your sales?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the whole shift of awareness and consciousness towards plant-based for environmental reasons to a big degree, but also animal welfare, that whole rising tide, and to us particularly alongside the move away from plastic, these are two massive macro trends that have helped us tremendously.
And would you use that in your promotion, targeting?
Yeah. We try not to use the word vegan, mainly because the vegans have done let's say they have a PR problem. I mean, I'm vegan myself, don't get me wrong, but it never goes down well being angry at people that believe different than you and judging people that still want to eat meat or dairy. So we try not to say we're vegan, but we're obviously vegan, so we're the natural vegan choice, but we're not taking a campaigning role in that camp. We're just making a product that supports that group, and if other people want to jump on board, that's great. Yeah. Yes.
It sounds like you produce in New Zealand, right?
Yeah, correct.
Do you find that really important, or would you consider moving production overseas to try and achieve some sort of economy of scale?
Yeah, that's sort of relevant for your project, I think. We have short shelf life. We have 35-day shelf life from production, a chilled cool chain, so a whole supply chain need to be 4 degrees chilled. So as soon as we move outside New Zealand, we face very, very high logistics cost. Yeah, please.
So your product is quite highly priced, the kind of high-end market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that not engaging in price wars with other companies to make subpar products is worked well for you? So having confidence in your product is ultimately a defining factor of your success?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd like to give a bit more of a nuanced answer. Price is very important. In the supermarket channel, it's incredible how price changes everything. If we drop our price by $2, our volumes go up 80 to 85%. Yeah. But what matters is more that you retain the value. It's so tempting to go into price wars. It's so tempting to we're the market leader, they're running promos, we just go double the SD. All you do is destroy market value. You have to resist that urge to keep dominating just because you can. Because what your really goal is not to maximize market share. It's not to always be the biggest player. It's to be strategic about maintaining market value. And some competitors sometimes feel they need to rebuild their share and they go really deep. But really, in the long term, it's also harmful to them because they train their customers to accept a very low price and at margins that they potentially can't survive long term. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part is price is always relative to value. Yeah, so you can be high price as long as you deliver a lot of value. And I believe we deliver a lot of value for the money. We pay all our staff living wage. We are the first carbon zero certified yogurt company in New Zealand, meaning we measure and manage and offset all our carbon emissions. We're the only one who uses organic coconut cream, and we also have a range of organic flavors. We use glass jars. We use peelable labels that make it easy to remove the labels from the jars and to be recyclable. So there's a lot of things there that the conscious consumer that this product is targeted to cares about. People now are so awake and so aware, they want to know what happens to this packaging after I throw it away. They want to know, where's this coconut cream from and where do you make it? Do you treat people fair? Do you pay them fair? Do they have a good life, or are they just slaving away in the factory 12 hours a day? So that's all points of differentiation and value if you can communicate it. Yeah.
A question here? Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
You've spoken about making sure that the workers in your factory are treated fairly and paid a decent wage. Do you know about further up in your supply chain, say people that are growing the coconuts that you use? In the other international business class 201, we recently looked at these sort of fruit companies in Central America during the 50s and 60s and how those companies treated those people like absolute dirt. And that seems to continue now, where people in sort of low-wage, labour-intensive jobs are still sort of kind of run into the ground. Have you been able to find any coconut growing companies that look after those growers the same way they were trying to look after your workers?
Well, it's a very good question, and it's a to be honest, it's a difficult thing to police. But I audit all our coconut suppliers. So we have a main supplier, which is in Indonesia, who I visit once a year, and I do a factory tour. I try to talk to some workers, and they also have an ISO certification around CSR. But you're right. At the end, these things, you can be certified. You can't police. A lot of companies try to tell you you have to police them, but we try to do everything we can that these things are not happening. I asked the monkey questions. I'm not sure if you guys heard that rumor that coconuts sometimes are harvested by monkeys. I can tell you now that's absolute nonsense. I've never met a coconut plantation that hasn't laughed in my face when I asked that question, because it's entirely uneconomical. Yeah, because you just use a long stick and cut them down. Like, why would you train and feed and maintain a monkey? So yeah, there's nothing to it. But yeah, supply chain sustainability is very important, but realistically, there's only so much you can do. I can fly once a year to Indonesia, but I can't base myself there and apart maybe when I'm bigger, run our own operation. But for now, we can just run audits and hope that what we see holds true. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think anyone's asked this, but is your yogurt available at Mochimat?
Where?
Is your product available at Mochimat?
No, I don't think so, actually. It should be. It's the second presentation I'm holding here. It should become a stockist by now. Yeah. Good question. Yeah, we have a small jar too that we do for airlines and my food bag and that sort of stuff.
And they're selling Ben and Jerry's, so
Yeah, very good question.
Comparison to Ben and Jerry's.
it's expensive, but this is the same legit.
Out of curiosity, did supermarkets approach you, or did you approach the supermarkets first?
The first supermarkets approached us. So when we started out, we didn't know anything about supermarkets or how that whole thing works. So we just worked with our stores in Raglan and then some organic stores and independents in Hamilton and the wider area started approaching us. And as soon we saw some traction there, we had the first supermarkets in Hamilton ask us. Yeah. But then, the supermarket game is its entirely own discipline. It's a very interesting one, to say the least. Good.
Yeah, these are fantastic questions. So I've got one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So a little nostalgia here. We have done a simulation in this class.
Oh
as
yeah.
you know. Sebastian did another simulation that is similar, but it's in the athletic footwear industry. The kinds of decisions, though, are similar. So I'm just going to flick to that screen. Oh, I've been idle too long. So this one here features action camera drones, right? Mm-hmm. So we sell cameras and drones that carry those cameras, much like footwear. And one of the decision screens is corporate citizenship or corporate social responsibility. And all of the decisions here are based on cause and effect concepts that have been established from studying thousands of businesses. But they're sort of generically applied here. And I guess my question to you is, if you were to compare and contrast, hint, hint, Raglan coconut yogurt with a typical company in this industry, and look at these sorts of decisions like making charitable contributions, green initiatives to promote environmental sustainability. You may remember some of these. Renewable energy programs, cafeteria, on-site childcare facilities for plant employees, additional safety equipment, improved lighting, ventilation, institution of supplier code of conduct and compliance, monitoring of suppliers. Well, we've had an answer to that question there. You do that once a year. But are some of these other things part of what you do? And so that's the first question. And then the second one is corporate social responsibility sort of an add-on to your business model, or is it more in the core?
Yeah. So you want me to ask the question in how to win the game, or how to what I would do?
He won the game when he played.
I think in real life, people make a business. You cannot have a long-term successful, continuously successful people with business without building up your people and looking after them. It's not. They do everything. Like I have 25 staff. I give the direction and I think about stuff, but I'm not making the yogurt on day to day. I don't pack it. I don't deal with the customer. I don't pay the invoices or that stuff. If people don't feel good at work and don't feel valued and don't feel that you pay them fair, they don't got to do a crap job. They just got to do what they need to do to not get fired. So really, if you don't look after your people, you don't really have much of a business. Yeah, so that's the real life question answer. I think game answer, it's all about you can improve your productivity by 100 units per year. You pay 500,000. So is there any better ways to invest at 500,000, or it's really about relative bang for buck. I don't think the business is just a simulation. It just cares about mathematical.
If I look at this slide, though, there's some sort of similarity in what you're able to do with your profit, and other companies might choose otherwise. I mean, to us, it's just stuff that's close to the heart, right? We live in Raglan, we live by the ocean. We've just done a trip to Indonesia a couple of years ago when we visited our coconut manufacturer. Plastic on the beach everywhere. Like, you could clean up the beach all day, every day. You think you first never get it clean, and next morning when the tide comes in, it's all there again. Really devastating. So that's when we decided, hey, we have to do something about it. And even if it's, the skeptics say, oh, what does your 100,000 or million pieces that you pick up? It's just a drop on the hot stone. But that's not what it's about. For us, it's about doing it because it's the right thing. And if you do the right thing for long enough, other people will start doing the right thing too, and it will shift their awareness around it. So that's why we started a million pieces of plastic program, which is an initiative where when people do a beach cleanup and send us pictures and accounts of how much they collected, we send them free yogurt. They can get a box of yogurt and a T-shirt from us as a sign of appreciation that they helped clean up the beaches. I mean, that's just, I don't know, like, you want to feel good about what you do. Everyone wants to feel good about themselves. And that's why we do these things. There's not much thought about, how is this going to be perceived with the customer, or is this of strategic importance, or how much return do we get on this? It doesn't matter. Like, we'll in the big scheme of things, of the expense of running a company and that sort of stuff, this is you can do this without going bankrupt. Yeah, everyone could do this. Every company, and that's one thing. Every company could invest in CSR. It's not expensive. It just needs to be on your values. You need to put energy and effort in it, and you say, this is just as important to me as making a successful product or hitting my sales target this month. And it will pay off because
Your employees will respect you more. Your customers will respect you more. Even supermarkets tell us it's amazing what they think. And supermarkets are the last one who care about stuff. All they care about is rate of sales and revenue.
Yeah.
But when you have the head buyer of foodstuffs saying, I love you guys, I love what you do, you know, like, she's not going to arrange you if you have a poor performing product, but you know, it makes an impact. It does matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a question about the donation you made to the seafooders. Is that it?
Yeah.
So why is it such a specific number? How do you?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Very good question. Great attention to detail there. What we did with that one, that was 1.5 to 2 years ago. We had a lid label, and we set on the lid of our most popular product, which was the natural 700 ml, that we donate 50% of every jar sold during that certain month, and that was the amount. Yeah.
It does work.
Yeah.
That's what it says. Okay. So, am I allowed to ask about your international aspirations, or?
Yeah.
Oh, is that strategic sort of?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
We're exploring various markets. New Zealand is working really well for us, and there comes a point where I, as a sort of personal entrepreneur, need to ask, where's the additional benefit to me and the wider community if I now scale this everywhere in the world? And maybe there is one, but at the moment, I have to wait till I feel that it's important to go international. But we are exploring the US at the moment, and we also have various export markets: Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Rarotonga, New Caledonia. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely something to be said for spreading yourself too thin. Yeah, if I were in Europe or the US, I had to fly there multiple times a year, and talk about flying, which has its own problematics if you do it a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure if it's increasing my happiness if I have a successful Europe business or US business. So I think there's a point where everyone needs to decide for themselves when enough is enough, and if it's just fine to have a good business in one country, and leave the other markets to other businesses. Yeah. Not relevant for the simulation. You definitely want to take over the world there.
So for now, you're focusing more on the domestic market, and you're going to incrementally look into internationalization.
Yeah, there is internationalization plans. It's relatively hard with yogurt because because of the short shelf life and supply chain, the chilled supply chain, you have to set up production in market. I mean, you need to find good commercial partners, good production partners. So it's all possible. It's just a longer process. Yeah.
So talking about your domestic market, you obviously have the majority share out of all the other brands. Are you able to pinpoint anything in particular that you think separates your brand from anyone else or gives you that competitive advantage?
That's old. It's 48% now. But yeah, okay. Separate the brand. I think there's the product. I do think we make the best product. But the product alone is not enough. I think the brand is just really authentic, because it is. Because it's really just Tesh, my wife and co-founder, and my personal values. And everything the brand does and says, it just does, because it's not overlaid onto the founders. It's just an extension of the founders. And if you look at all but one of our competitors, they're owned by larger companies, often contract manufactured. One is owned by a UK company who just contract manufactures in the South Island. So there's no real personality. There's nothing you can connect with as a consumer. Yeah? It's a brand and they look nice, but there's none of that personalized story that makes you say, hey, these are good people. I trust them enough, so I want to support them. I want to support this product and this company. And brand is about identity and not story. If you cannot connect with a brand, if there's not more than a logo, there's no story behind. It's not really a brand, it's just a logo. And I think we try to be more than just a logo, but sort of tell our story as authentic as we can, and contribute to the causes that we care about. Yeah.
On this slide here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then some,
Yeah.
a few small.
There's about 8
competitors.
now. Yeah.
8, okay. Would you just talk a little bit about the competition and the competitive responses they've had, what you think they've had, and the responses that you've had in or that you've taken, or just talk about the competition and the rivalry.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
know
there's a
you
bit of
said-
rivalry.
yeah.
Mainly between us and Cathedral Cove. We launched it about the same time. We felt a little bit they copied us because they launched just after us, also in a glass jar. But that's okay, since we are ahead. Yeah, the typical responses are what we see in the market is people competing on price, companies competing on price. To me, that's the poorest way of competing, because you're basically buying market share at your own cost. You're not winning. You discount your product, your margin goes right down, your customer becomes used to a lower price point, and you buy yourself a bit of market share. It's maybe the fastest, but the least profitable, least smart, least creative way of competing. I think if you can, and I'm not too sure how that translates into the strategy game, if you can, try first to compete on anything else but price. And eventually you need to screw the price screw a little bit and give in a little bit. But if price is your only strategy to compete, you're not in a very good position. So what we did early on, one of our very first competitive responses is we started with these social initiatives where we put a sticker. We saw, okay, what else can we do to add value? So we try to make the product and the company more and more appealing on as many dimensions that we can think of. Yeah.
All right. Well, you asked about the simulation. These are the types of decisions they can make to compete on things other than price. Maybe it doesn't translate.
Yeah. Well, in our industry, retailer support is important. Stores love when you pump money into them, and they'll range you more products. So having good relationship with your retailers and good service level. In the food industry, we have 42 people who frequent all supermarkets as often as possible. Some of the Auckland supermarkets are serviced 3 times a week. Some of the biggest ones, most of them only 1 to 2 times a week. But that's just to make it easier on the retail, to make sure the shelf is stocked, make sure they don't run out of stock, there's no dated stock. And retailers really appreciate it. It just gives you a better shelf presence. And by having a better service team than other companies, you already win to a degree, because if they're out of stock or the stock looks poor on shelf, no one's going to buy it. Yeah. Promos work, but that's the price screw. So
Warranty period is relevant.
Yeah, I mean, what works really well for us, which you could relate to advertising, is store demos. It's a relatively expensive product. People that haven't tried it yet won't chip out $13 or $12 for a jar of yogurt. Once they try it, they get a good conversion rate. So it's really important to generate that free trial so people say, okay, I actually like that. It's worth my money, I buy it. That works really well for us. It's probably not so important for super cheap products, I'd say. Yeah, so.
All right. Okay. Well, you've already talked about how you compensate, or how the benefits package, I guess, maybe embellishing it a bit for your staff. But these are some of the decisions that they've been making about their workforce, and I can see how they translate a bit to what you've been talking about. I mean, you pay a living wage, right? Not just the minimum.
Nope.
Do you have incentives for production?
Performance targets, not real incentives. No. It's troublesome. When you structure incentives, you structure for, let's say, output, but then without wanting it, you may compromise quality, and other little issues sneak in. So Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. But yeah, thing on wage, what we try to do is level the wage curve. So we have this sort of this policy that top level management cannot earn more. So CEOs, me and Tesh, cannot earn more than 3 times the lowest paid employee.
Wow, that's low ratio.
Yeah, New Zealand average is about 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that creates a level, saves a lot of money at the top, but also raises the bottom, creates an equal organization that doesn't have this like 2 layers where entry-level staff, production staff feel resentful. It's not this us against them type of philosophy.
Sure. Yeah.
Everyone's in the same team.
And how transparent are you about that?
Or we communicate in introductions and so on, and we talk about the living wage. And yeah, in Raglan, we are probably the best paying employee. Yeah. But in Raglan, it's not a very large target market. Yeah, and then with wage, I feel it's a bit of a hygiene factor, right? Like, I've observed that people want a certain minimum base wage to be happy. Once you give them enough, it doesn't need to be excessive. It becomes a hygiene factor. Like they're not going to be dissatisfied. They're not going to work so much harder because they're getting now 25. The entry-level worker gets instead of 25, 27 bucks. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference to the performance, but it does make a performance from if you pay someone $17 or $22 or $20. It makes a big difference. Yeah.
Right, we're getting near the end, and I've got a question, unless somebody else has. This one has to do with good vibes only. So on the way here, we were just having a conversation about how there's sort of stepping stones in your life, and you're on this path now with Raglan coconut yogurt, but there might be a few more steps, and I'll just maybe challenge the idea a little bit with Raglan coconut yogurt's investment in some of the social, like the cleaning up plastic on beaches, and I guess there's a few instances, say Stephen Tyndall, when you sort of branch off and you realize, actually, what I'm doing now and I'm interested in, it's not so much about yogurt anymore, it's more about maybe an environment or a social cause or something. Would you just speak a little bit about how your thoughts have sort of been all-encompassing inside of Raglan coconut yogurt, and how they might in the future be separate than that, or not?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It gets very philosophical there.
Yeah.
Even from the beginning to now, like the 5-year journey of Raglan coconut yogurt, my motivation and why we are still doing this, I'm still doing this, has changed. When it all starts out, I wanted to win. I wanted to have a successful company, and I wanted the company to be at number 1 of the market share table. I wanted to feel like we are successful in that space, and I wanted it to be profitable and a good, successful company that I can say, yeah, I've succeeded in the business world. Once we were in that top spot in market share, I stopped caring about it, because it really doesn't matter anymore then. You've done that. So then you have to ask yourself, why are we still doing this? Why do I still get up in the morning and make yogurt-related decisions when I could do something else? And then it really becomes about purpose and intrinsic motivation. And I think that's like that's an individual journey, whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you feel good and feel like you're contributing, and gives you a buzz. But yeah, like I think a lot of people that have success and material success particularly, I think it's just a progression. I personally never wanted to get stuck on being a wealth accumulator. I have no interest of building a bigger and bigger company to have a bigger and bigger house and more things and so on. Like I think that's being stuck on a certain level of human experience. I think there is some form of satisfaction and achievement to be had beyond material success. And yeah, so how that looks like is for everyone else to figure out for themselves.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are at the end of the period, and I've got some material, some gift, a gift for you. I'm not sure if you like it. It comes from the university's vineyard on Waiheke
Oh
Island.
yeah, right next to your backyard.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll present this to you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Wish you a pleasant evening.
Thank you, guys. It's been a great privilege to talk to you.
It was great. I think it's great. Oh, sorry, sharing this up.
Yeah, good quality questions.
Yeah, and I'm glad it I'm glad it went off the script. You know, we covered most of the content anyway.
Oh yeah.
I was just wondering, where is
I started business.
okay, this one. Okay.
Yeah, good. No, good questions. Yeah, keep it up.
She's from the Global Studies program.
From what?
Global Studies program.
Oh.
Really interesting student.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, it's done. I just delete this from the computer.
How come I didn't know that? I thought it wasn't a mass email.
It was on the email.
So the museum?
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah. I'll show you.
Did you meet her?
I know her. Well, that's the green and pink. They were talking there. They were talking about climate change. I recorded like a question and answer as well.
Oh, send it to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No,
Also,
you're
I
welcome.
tried the
Thank you.
yogurt and I love it.
I'm glad you
It's
like
really
it.
cool.
Yeah, see you.
Dan, is this going to be one of the 3 questions in the exam?
Yeah, why? I told you it is.
Thank you.
Everything okay in the factory?
Yeah. All right. More booze.